The Dallas Stars are moving on. They advance with a big win over the Minnesota Wild. Dane Lewis of Locked On Stars is here to wrap up that series and look ahead to the second round for Big D. Gil Martin here. The Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup continues as we welcome Dane Lewis from Locked On Stars to take an analysis of how his team did in round one and to look ahead for the rest of their postseason run. And Dane, thanks for being here today. What was the biggest reason that the Stars were able to win this series against the Wild? It wasn't easy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It wasn't easy, but it was a very resilient effort from the Stars. A lot of opportunities for them to lose a game or, to be in a really tough spot. And they could have easily rolled over and given in, but they continued to find ways to win games. Game 4, comes down to Jake Oettinger making some really sappy saves at the end of the game. And, I think they carried that momentum throughout the rest of the series. And it was impressive, to say the least. And Jake Oettinger deserves a ton of credit for his play, but you also got to look up and down the lineup. Tyler Seguin comes in and fills the role for Joe Pavelski after he gets injured in game 1. He had, 4 or 5 goals in this series. Roope Hintz had 12 points. Just a hat trick performance in game 2. And even defensively, guys like Miro Heiskanen held, Kirill Kaprizov to 1 goal. Matt Boldy didn't have, I don't even know if he scored a goal. I think he had maybe 3 or 4 assists, but all up and down the lineup, the Stars did an excellent job of shutting down the Wild's best players, but then also got some really good performances from some of their best players as well. And that was the recipe for success in this series.
So you mentioned a bunch of players who really stood out, but who do you think was the series MVP?
I'll go Roope Hintz in this one. It's tough because I do want to give it to Jake Oettinger. He played very, very well, but Hintz, I set a new record for the most points in a series by a Dallas Stars player in the playoffs. So, he was spectacular every single game. And I feel like, if we continue to do these, post-series analysis, I'll probably say Jake Oettinger at some point, and he definitely is an honorable mention here. But, Hintz just found a way to take over the series from an offensive standpoint, but I think he deserves a little bit of the defensive credit as well, just with how refined his entire game is on both sides of the ice.
Was there a potential weakness that was exposed against the Wild that the Stars are going to need to address in round 2 and hopefully beyond?
Yeah, I think a little bit. The defense at times is a little bit leaky around Jake Oettinger, and I think that got a little bit better, by the end of the series. But especially early on, especially in games like Game 3, definitely was not as clean as it could have been. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more of that, get fine-tuned and get cleaned up. And I'm sure we will. I know there were some moves made throughout the series, and I'm sure we'll see more of that, whether it's Seattle or Colorado in round 2.
What were some of the adjustments that they made that were so successful?
I think one of the big ones is they put in Joel Hanley over Colin Miller, and I don't think that was the end-all be-all, but just changing up some of the personnel and, obviously giving Miro Heiskanen plenty of minutes is going to be helpful in that regard. And I think he leads the NHL in time on ice in the postseason right now. So, it's really just kind of a mixture of those things, is making sure you have your best guys out there as often as you can. And then, if guys need to sit out like Colin Miller and, you need to bring a new face in, whether that be Joel Hanley or Niels Lundqvist, we haven't seen yet, you got to make the proper adjustments. And I think also just the guys that you do have, Esa Lindell, Yanni Hakanpää, just playing a more disciplined game around the crease, which I think, veteran guys like that, I think that's something they'll be able to adjust to as, the postseason carries on.
So how does this series win change the long-term outlook of your team? Is the playoff run now considered a success, or is there more that still needs to be done to reach that conclusion?
I won't say it's a success just yet. I think the ceiling for this team is a Stanley Cup Finals appearance, if not a Stanley Cup Finals win, just with who they have in net and who they have, on the roster right now, and with Pete DeBoer, who's been there before. But I do think it's an important series win, and I've gone on record saying after the game, on Friday night that, I think the Stars, now that they've won this series with how physically demanding it was and how hard the Wild play, and the Stars having to battle through some of that, I think that they've shown that they can hang with just about anybody. So I think it's important in that regard of knowing that no matter who lies ahead, I think they should be confident in their game and that they can play and compete against anybody in the Western Conference, and I think in the East as well. And I think that's what we've learned from this series. But I won't say the season is a success just yet. I think you need to go a little bit deeper before you can put the success label on there.
Well, let's see how they do. Looking forward to who their round 2 opponent will be. Dane, thank you so much. That's going to do it for our Stars review of round 1 and look ahead here on the Locked On Road to the Stanley Cup. Be sure to subscribe or to follow Locked On Stars for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.